We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Monday, October 28th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Cheska Dainong.
Happy Monday, everyone! It is
Monday.
Yes!
And Im Sang-yeon.
Hi guys, glad to see you.
Hi. Now, both here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So today is Monday, time to talk about some of the latest topics trending among the younger generation here in Korea. Today we're going to talk about Korea's office culture, specifically work hours. Now this topic has been gaining more attention recently with new data on the average time office workers here in the country are leaving work. So Cheska, are there any notable changes when compared to the past?
So in Korea, just a little fun fact, we have a word 퇴근, which is very specific to Korean word, which means getting work off hours.
Right.
So there have been some very interesting stats that have been displayed that show the change in working hours over the last 5 years. So let's take a look at the screen to find out how the time has changed. Now, in this stat, they averaged out the time people got off work from office in about 5 major subway stations in the capital city areas. And back in 2009, the average time was around 6:50-ish. And today, we're about to get off work around 6:28, which is about 20 minutes earlier.
That's quite a big change.
It is a big change. And as we all know, for people that commute here in South Korea, 20 minutes can actually make a huge difference during rush hours. I mean, just in 5 minutes, you can actually get a seat on a public transport or not. Like 5 minutes can make a huge difference.
And the number of cars on the road, they're really different.
Yes, for people that are driving, that would also make a huge difference too. So the good news is we are getting off work a little bit earlier than the past.
It is indeed good news. So once again, the data we just saw shows that more workers are heading home earlier these days here in Korea. And just a quick note for our viewers here in the country, the standard working hours at most workplaces are from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now back to our discussions, Hang-yeon, what do you think is driving this shift in early going to home hours?
Yeah, so first of all, if I just give you some information about the working hour history, the legal working hour in South Korea is limited to 52 hours a week right now. And this includes Saturdays and Sundays. But in the past, the total working hours was about 68 hours. But as of 2018, the total amount was reduced to 52 hours, which is now. And I think many of our work cultures changed during the COVID. During the pandemic, many people had to stick to the social distancing measures, and companies were no exception. So most of the 회식, that is the company dinner after work, was actually disappeared during the pandemic season. And according to recent survey, 64% of the citizens replied that their companies no longer have colleague dinners after work.
I see. So I want to ask you, Cheska, I know that you've worked at a number of companies.
Yes.
So is this something that you've also witnessed during your time there?
I think for the fact that I've worked at several companies before, 2 major ones, and including Arirang here right now, 회식 has always been quite a big topic, even among my friends.
Right.
Because sometimes when you work in a big corporate, it is very, very difficult to get out of these like extra hour dinner or social gathering because it's kind of important that you follow what your superior does.
Yeah.
But luckily for the 2 companies that I've been in, one didn't have a mandatory 회식 or the after-hour gathering, and the other one, including Arirang here, we have lunch gathering, which makes it so much easier for us to secure our own time. But also I think the one important thing is I feel really respected in terms of how I'm using my time, because people are making sure, the office is making sure that I can secure my after time to do the things that I would love to do. And especially in some of the stats here in South Korea, almost 70% of office workers actually have a hobby outside of work.
Really?
Yeah, so our generation is definitely known for self-development and curating different hobbies. I think here in News Gen, we covered a topic about gat생, like people who schedule their lives.
Even after their work time, right?
Exactly. You know, they make a checklist of, reading a book, like writing a journal.
Working out,
yes. So if you go to the gym around like 7 to 9 p.m. everyone can notice it's literally the peak hour because all the office workers are coming after work to work out, to de-stress. And a lot of people, especially our generation, at least has like one or two hobbies or work they do after their work. Yeah.
I kind of feel guilty because I think I'm that other 30% who doesn't
it's totally
really
unrelatable
have
for
a
me.
hobby.
That stat is, yeah, that's what the stat says, but yeah.
But anyway, this kind of change in office culture after we went through COVID, I think especially the younger generation will be very welcoming and pleasant because they have their own time after work. It kind of guarantees their own time. But on the other hand, this has kind of sparked more generational divide in the workplace. Because Korea's office culture has traditionally been rooted in community values and respect for seniority. I think we've talked about this on Newsgem before, where leaving on time is sadly wasn't always simple, especially for young newbie workers, even if you've completed your work. However, the younger generation seems to be approaching work differently, as our panelists briefly mentioned. So I want to ask you, Sang-Yeol, how do you think our generation's value around work and personal time differ from those of the older generation?
Yeah, so I remember back in the days, my father's daily routine was about work, and work. And not to mention, some of them even had to work on Saturdays. So this is because during the 90s, when the baby boomer generation were raised up, South Korea was undergoing a huge, massive development. So it was deemed natural for an individual to sacrifice one's energy and time for the benefit of the company. But for the millennials and the Z generation, the MZers, it's like the opposite. We tend to value our personal and leisure time than the satisfaction and the goal of the company. And our generation exactly doesn't really understand the logic why we have to stay after the designated working hours for the companies. So for me and other the MZers, we tend to believe that once we leave the office building, we have the every right to reject any additional workload. So I think these kind of perceptual difference between the older and younger generation is what causing these conflicts in the office.
Right. I think more people among our generation kind of think work is what you do during work hours, the set work hours that's in your contract, which could be one of the reasons why we're seeing this change in perspective when compared to the older generation. Is there anything more you'd like to add, Cheska?
Yeah, I would just like to add that I don't think it's necessarily that we don't like 회식 or the after-hour gathering. I think we do want to mingle, we do want to have fun with our colleagues, but I think it's about where we place our priority. So for our generation, the priority over our physical well-being and mental well-being definitely takes higher priority than the work hours or work after hours because we've already exhausted ourselves during the legal work hour that we were supposed to do. So as we mentioned, after work hour, a lot of people try to devote it to their hobbies. And just to give you my example, it's really difficult to live in South Korea and pay the rent and try to make a living. So every day after work, I would go straight to tutoring students.
Oh, so like a second job.
Exactly. And then during the weekends, because I wanted to do my own self-development and make my own portfolio, I would spend the weekdays preparing for like an interview on the weekends. So therefore, I could not stay after work to go to 회식 or stay extra hours. So these are some of the circumstantial things that some people go through. It's not just about, oh, I don't want to because of a generational gap. Yeah.
But how do you do all of that?
Yeah, I know. You are living the katsing.
I'm sure there are many out there who do what I do, like doing hobbies and trying to have second jobs.
Once again, I
Still unrelatable.
I'll come back with the stats on that one too.
Okay, so as both of our panelists and myself are part of the young generation, we're now gonna take the time to see how we feel about these situations. So we've prepared a short OX quiz or a session. So please raise the O or X sign depending on your answer. So there are three questions. Number one, if I finish my tasks, I should be able to leave even if my boss is still working.
Ooh.
1, 2, 3. I'd go for an O.
I go for a small O.
I'll go for a big O.
Okay.
Okay, small, big, and then I'm kind of in the middle.
Okay, let's start with why you chose a middle O.
So there's a great word in South Korea called 눈치,
Right.
which means you're kind of like checking out the vibe of other people. So because I worked at a company, I would always make sure, like before I left, I would go to my boss and always say a line like this: "Hi, I'm about to leave. Do you need me for something?"
Oh,
That's like my vibe check.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm feeling guilty again.
No, I wasn't brave enough to like shoot out. So but also our company did a lot of festival projects. So it was really important that the team knew what was going on. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm done with my thing, but if there's anything else, I will stay. But I would really like to go kind of vibe check. Yeah.
I would like to kind of think that because my job is kind of focused on individual tasks, I
Yes.
normally write my report, although I get editing and then we do the video edit, but mostly I work alone when I write the article. I think that could be a reason why
Okay.
I think
I
there's a
will
circumstantial difference for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So Sang-yeon, you also chose a small O.
Yeah,
Why?
small O, yeah, just like Chaska mentioned, I also have this nunchi because I'm a Korean. So it would kind of make me feel uncomfortable if I leave earlier than my boss, although I finish my work. And like you guys mentioned, I think this depends on the type of the job that you're in.
Yes.
So if you are involved in group projects, and even though you finish your portion of work, it would like really feel uneasy to leave earlier while your colleagues are still struggling
Yeah.
with the
Right.
works.
Yeah.
But if you're like only focused on your one particular job, just like you, Eugene, then I guess it's okay to ignore the others.
Okay, I think it kind of depends on what
Okay.
kind of project you're currently
Yes.
doing
Right.
at work. So let's go on to our second question. Number 2, if there is a group lunch or dinner, the 회식 that our panelists mentioned, outside of work hours,
Yeah.
attending isn't mandatory. 1, 2, 3. I think I'd go for an O.
Yeah.
I would go for O, saying it isn't mandatory.
It isn't
isn't
mandatory.
mandatory.
It isn't mandatory.
Mandatory.
Why do you think it isn't mandatory?
Okay. Well, this is a very personal thing, but I don't drink.
Oh,
And in Korean, 회식, sometimes drinking
mostly involves drinking.
Yeah, especially if it's a night
Yeah.
회식, right? So I don't want to be forced to drink, but unless there isn't a drinking involved, I kind of like to have fun when I'm off work hours with my friends and my colleagues. But if I'm forcing someone to come who doesn't want to come,
That might ruin that
I think
person's
that
fun.
ruins the vibe. So I just want it to be like voluntary for people who want to have fun. And there might be times, usually, and I'm pretty sure you know too, there are days where I really want to like drink and hang out with my colleagues, but there are days I just need a little bit of time alone.
Me time.
Right?
Alone
So
time.
I don't want to make it voluntary because I want to have more fun with my colleagues.
Yeah, I also think, like Cheska as well, I don't think it's mandatory. It would be great if more people could come
come.
because that doubles the fun.
Yes.
But I think these group lunch or dinner should be optional.
Yeah, I do think it should be optional, but I do recommend, especially if you're new to the company, that you should at least participate in
Yeah.
the company dinner.
Great chance to like
Yeah.
get close to your
Yeah,
colleagues.
you get close to your colleagues. It's also an opportunity for social networking. And also during the dinner time, you can also hear about useful information that you couldn't
Yes.
hear during your work
Yeah,
that
true.
went around during the behind the scene. So I think if you are an ambitious person who's willing to climb the corporate ladder, I think company dinner is actually a good chance where you can give good impression to your boss. In Korea, we have this term called 눈도장을 찍다, which literally means that you give this impression that you are willing to sacrifice yourself for the company. So if you're really trying to like build up your career, I think participating in this kind of dinner once or twice wouldn't be that bad.
Well, thank you for that practical advice, Sang-yeong.
That's
to
a
our
very
viewers.
Korean corporate tip.
Yes, that's how I climb up the corporate ladder instead of working hard.
Right. So to our last question, number 3, if the job could offer great benefits, I wouldn't take it if it didn't have regular working hours. 1, 2, 3. Wow.
Yeah. I would take it.
Yeah.
You would take it? You would take it?
I think so, because I think this is a question of like the really important question of, is it collectivism or individualism? So if it benefits the company, would you still do it with the guarantee or not guarantee of whether it might benefit you or not? Or would you be more important to secure your own time? If I were working for a company, I would want the company to do well because I would think it would trickle down for me somehow. So I would invest my time and my energy in the hopes that something good turns out. Yeah, I'm able to do that. Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, so just like Cheska said, if the company goes well, then it would be beneficial for me.
It's a win-win
Yeah,
situation.
right. It's a win-win situation. Obviously, there are times, unfortunate times, where the company can betray you, but
Yeah.
still,
Or situations betray you,
Yeah, but still, you can write at least one line in your resume that you have participated in such
Yeah.
projects, which could be helpful for your career. So it wouldn't really hurt that much.
Right. Now, at the heart of all this debate that we've done until now is the issue of overworking, a topic not just relevant in Korea, but of course globally. So we took the time to ask our viewers how common overworking is in their workplaces and what they think about it. And let's take a look at some of the responses. Selena Castillo 7185 says, it used to be, then COVID broke out and a lot of companies cut back. Rex Alex Macedon says, when I was in advertising, it was usual to work overtime to meet deadlines. Working 16 hours a day was tiring but fun. Plus, getting a bonus equivalent to 4 months' pay at year-end was even better. 808 Infantry 11X says, it can be depending on the industry, but there has been a federal crackdown on restricting overtime. Work-life balance has been a thing for a while now. Right, so we've taken a look at our viewers' comments, and to expand our discussion and explore this topic further, we're now going to invite an expert to our talks after a short break.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Right, so today we're joined by Sarah Park, Head of Korea HR at GP, a global job search and recruitment platform. Ms. Park has been working in human resources for well over a decade. Great to have you back on the show, Sarah.
Thanks for having me again.
Thank you for joining us. So, heading right into our first question, why do you think office workers are leaving work earlier than before, as we mentioned earlier in our stat?
Right. So in South Korea, we're really witnessing a shift from the traditionally long working hours towards a more balanced work-life priorities. This change is partly driven by the younger generations, millennial, Gen Z, or MG, as referred to in Korea, who prioritize personal well-being and mental health. Globally, there's a trend towards valuing productivity over hours spent, and South Korea is slowly starting to follow suit, especially in sectors that rely on creativity and innovation. And companies are beginning to recognize and realize that supporting a healthier work-life balance can not only lead to a happier and more productive employee, but also benefits the company as well.
You know, Sarah, comparatively speaking, globally, do office workers in Korea leave earlier or later than the usual stats?
That's a good question. South Korea has long been known for its intense work culture and longer hours. You know, the nunchi thing you guys were talking about earlier as well, especially when compared to countries like those in Europe, where leaving work on time is standard. Although policies such as the 52-hour workweek law has started to address this, Korean office workers, especially in the traditional industries, still tend to leave later. However, as more companies modernize their work culture to attract younger talent, we're slowly starting to see a gradual shift. And certain forward-thinking companies in Korea now encourage earlier departure times and flexible work, aligning closer with global practices seen in Western countries.
Okay, Sarah, then as more younger generation workers are flowing into the companies, do you think the average time that employees leave work could push earlier in the future compared to what we're seeing nowadays?
I do think this is a real possibility because South Korea is slowly increasingly starting to focus on global perspectives on work-life balance with the younger workforce advocating for healthier work habits. We're seeing a slow and steady push towards earlier work hours in general, and companies are beginning to focus more on output and productivity rather than hours worked in the office. This aligns with global trends where flexibility is increasingly seen as a key to employee satisfaction and retention. Over time, especially as digital transformation continues, I believe more companies in Korea will shift with flexible and efficient work models being the top priority.
I guess we'll have to see whether more changes are going to be made. All right, Sarah, thank you so much for your time today. As always, we really appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right, so after our discussion about work hours and office culture here in Korea today, I kind of thought that the time you leave work, of course, doesn't tell the whole story about a company's working environment, but it's an important factor in shaping your work-life balance and overall job satisfaction, as we mentioned before, especially for our generation. So ending off our episode today, I want to ask you, what do you think is your ideal time to get off from work, and do you think we'll be seeing more changes to working hours in the future?
You know, Nugent, I think you made a great statement. I don't think what time you get off work really tells the whole story. And as Sarah mentioned today, I think it's really about productivity and efficiency. And because I have worked at companies before, I truly believe in open communication, meaning that there are some times where you are free to obviously leave work, but there will be times where you would have to communicate with your team openly to say, listen, are we in a busy streak? Do you want me to stay, or can I, take my time off, because securing my own time is very special. And that reminded me of a research that Alex Pang Sujung Kim, he did about 4-day week, and how productivity actually increases if you work 4-day week and actually work more efficiently. So there will be some benefits to leaving early, but again, you shouldn't take advantage of just leaving early to slack off, or to make your teammates suffer because you're not doing your job.
Right, and especially we're seeing more Korean companies implementing the 4-day work week from last year, so maybe we'll see some more relevant changes.
Yes.
What do you think, Sang-yeon?
Well, I think the best type of work would be work from home.
Work from home.
Yes, where I can turn on the computer about 5 minutes before I start working.
And then still be in your PJs at the bottom, and then sit at the top.
I wear suits on the tops. Okay, but I think like Cheska mentioned, I think we shouldn't take advantage of this 9-to-6 working system, because there are some employees who tend to fool around during the work hours rather than sticking faithfully to their duties, and yet they insist that they should leave us at 6 sharp. This could be bad for both the companies and the employees themselves too, because you wouldn't be able to build up your working capacity and your skills in the office. So when I was working as an intern at the public corporation, there were some kind of activities, I should say, in between the working hours, where it was really unnecessary, like the coffee breaks and the smoking times. Yeah, because I thought to myself, if I were them, I would rather stick to my duties during the time and leave earlier. So I think what matters now is how you spend the working hours instead of when you leave the work.
So it's not about when, more about how.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, that's all from NewsGen today, but we'll be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Cheska Dainha.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Im Sang-yeon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.